Walk, walk the villages, walk the villages.
Well, I'm looking forward to it.
Cool. So we'll get started just to kind of be wary of time. Today we have Marc Laredo kind of giving his thoughts on kind of the ask we've had in the communication relationship with small businesses, restaurants in particular. Marc, I know we sent this to you ahead of time, so for the
Yeah.
sake of kind of the recording, did you just want to kind of give a quick couple background, like a minute background yourself, and then kind of just start walking through that PDF that we sent you?
Yeah, I'll be happy to. So I'll give,
Ahead of
for
time.
those who don't know me, I'm Marc Laredo. I grew up in Newton, raised and moved back here 34 years ago with my wife, Roberta. We've raised our 3 kids here. I went through the public schools. All 3 of our kids went through the public schools. Our daughter-in-law went through the public schools. I want you to know that I'm the least foodie person in my family. And my wife is, Ron, you know my wife, I think, Roberta. It was Roberta Karen. Um, my wife's a dietitian with a private practice in Newton Center. All 3 of my kids are superb cooks. I do a great job doing the dishes. That's my skill set. But in all seriousness, I love this community. I am very concerned about supporting our local businesses. I think they're the engine of our local economy. They also really bring people together, which is something I'm really committed to. Publicly, I've been in public life for 20 plus years. I was in the school committee for 8 years, including as chair. I'm in my 14th year in the city council. I'm currently the president of the city council. And as Nancy noted, I come from the private sector. I've been a lawyer for 40 years. I co-founded my law firm nearly 30 years ago. I served as managing partner. So I get it. A lot of my clients fit into exactly your category. They're locally owned, often family businesses. And I represent them in an array of situations, everything from formation to growth to exit strategies. And unfortunately, at times, disputes among the owners. I've kind of seen it all over the years. But I really do think that combination is going to give me a real head start dealing with the business community, because I really understand firsthand what it's like to do business and the challenges you face. And so I'm acutely aware of that. I've appreciated the opportunity that Greg and his team have provided in the past. And I'm looking forward to working with all of you very closely. Let me be really clear. If you're successful, we're successful, okay? Our job in City Hall is to help make you successful. I can't do everything for your businesses, but government should not stand in your way. Government should be there as your partner. Government should be there to make you thrive. And if we do those things, and it could be a variety of things, everything from providing trash barrels and seating outside your restaurants, to making sure the sidewalks are maintained, to make sure there's parking. I know that's always a big issue. And to make sure when you come to City Hall for a special permit, if you need one, we get you through that process expeditiously. And frankly, if there's things that shouldn't require a special permit, particularly some of the parking requirements in our village centers, which I think over time we waive all the time, then we should figure out how to get rid of them, because I don't want to be an obstacle to your success. So I'll leave it at that, and very happy to go through the questions in any order you want.
Perfect. Thank you. Yeah, so let's just go, I guess, top to bottom kind of. Well, we're going to assume everyone's read through it. So if you just want to kind of provide your feedback and what your kind of thoughts are on how you can make some of these things a reality.
Yeah.
So obviously one that we've discussed multiple times, kind of ongoing offline, probably throughout the last year, is communication breakdowns with City Hall and the restaurants, whether it's construction, whether it's new initiatives, parking breakdowns, issues with kind of permitting. What were your thoughts in terms of the points we have under communications?
So look, there's no excuse on our part for not having good communication, okay? And what I'm doing now, but my team is going to do, and it's important that you know that I'm going to have a team. I can't do this alone. I'm going to have a senior team in City Hall. We are talking very much about economic development. I'm going to have a chief of staff. That person is selected, but I can't publicly identify, an absolutely terrific person who's going to report directly to me. And part of that person's job will be to go out and actually go talk to you folks. Okay, not just you, but your landlords, because we have to understand what their needs are. But we are going to have a strategy, a deliberate strategy of going out and talking to people upfront, early in the administration, understand what the concerns are. And that means going to you, not expecting you to come to us. Now, obviously, there's a lot of restaurants in the city. We're not going to be able to touch everyone every day or close to it, but we're going to make a concerted effort to get out there. I am completely in favor of a centralized email list or quarterly updates. I have one ask. You all have to provide me with the contact information for the appropriate people. In some instances, it may be the owner. In other instances, it may be the store manager. In some instances, it may be both. And that also means that as those contact people change, because they do, not ownership as much, but certainly managers, you may move managers from one location to another, for example, will need to be kept up to date on that. So we're getting the information out to the right people. But with that said, I'll commit to you right now, we're going to do that. Okay. I don't think that's hard. I think it's something that's very basic. What I will say is there's going to be a little trial and error here. Okay. You're going to have to tell us what's working and what's not working. I'm not a big believer in communications that are long treatises. Much more of kind of a bullet point, single, paragraph by paragraph person with a link if you need more detailed information, for example. But I'll need to hear from you. We'll put something out in a first update or a first email, and you'll say, Marc, this wasn't good. Here's why. Here's what we need instead, and we'll change it. I'm never afraid to make changes to things, and I think there's some trial and error. So bottom line, Arpit, is I'm going to completely commit to that. That's an easy ask.
Cool. And then kind of just to kind of clarify here, is your role of chief of staff going to be a different or a new role, or is
It
that
is.
chief operating officer?
No, they're going to, I'll share with you my vision is for the structure of the executive office. I'm going to have 4 people report directly to me within the office. One is a chief community services officer. I've already identified that publicly as John Rice, who's a former city councilor and runs a Hyde Center. That's going to be overseeing human services, parks and recreation, senior services, any kind of community service that we provide. That's going to be John's bailiwick. The second is going to be a chief operating officer, and Josh Morse, who's currently our building commissioner, has agreed to step into that role, and that's going to oversee planning, inspectional services, DPW, public buildings. That's kind of the nuts and bolts of operations at City Hall. He's also going to have some relationship with fire and police too. The third is a new position, and that's going to be a chief of staff, and that person is going to be really charged both with helping run the executive office, overseeing the economic development team, and being my point person for getting out there and communicating with businesses, with residents, with city councilors and school committee members, with leaders of other communities, because frankly, I think we can do a much better job of talking to the leadership in Needham and Wellesley and Waltham and Watertown. What's working for them, what's not working for them. Are there opportunities for us to collaborate on things? All of that's going to be part of that person's job, as well as dealing with our state and federal delegations. So that's how I envision that. And I think economic development is going to fall within that person's area of responsibility. And that's important because that's going to be a direct report to me. Because I think this area is critically important. By the way, I don't know exactly where the economic development director position is going to be situated. Right now, it's in planning. It may stay in planning, but they'll, at the very least, there'll be dotted line coordination with the chief of staff. And there's just some logistical issues involved there. But I am going to make this position elevated in terms of importance. And as I think I said earlier, I envision a very proactive approach to economic development, not a reactive approach.
Perfect. Did anyone else have anything to add for Mark?
I think, part of this role that we were talking about as a collaborative is that this person kind of has a seat at the table for decision making. And I think that's what you're saying. I just wanted to, reiterate that someone who can, coordinate between DPW and planning. So when, big decisions are made, somebody can say, hey, wait a second, we got to consider the restaurant voice here. And we hope that that person will, embody that role.
That's why I'm envisioning the approach I have. I forgot to mention one other kind of key person on the executive team. That's going to be the chief financial officer. The current one has been gracious enough to say that she's going to stick around for another 6 months, which I'm grateful for. But candidly, she doesn't want to be part of a team for 4 years. I get it. She's been working for the city for 15 years, but we are going to have stability in that position, which is also important for everyone in the city because I want a smooth budget process next year. But yes, Max, in response to your question, the high level people are going to be working with me on a daily, and they are going to be talking to one another. So we're not going to have silos where planning's doing one thing and the economic development people know nothing about it till, weeks after the fact.
Nancy,
And we are going to be, if we're going to err, folks, we're going to err on the side of over communicating. Okay. When you tell us you're getting too many emails from us, fine, we'll cut back. But until then, my view is you're always better over communicating what you're doing, and you communicate early. And if anyone who knows Josh Morris in particular, when he's done his school projects, and Greg probably knows this, he has been extraordinarily good about communicating with all the stakeholders early and often. And doing that eliminates a lot of problems, frankly, because once people feel like they're involved and they have a voice, things go much smoother.
Sounds good. Nancy, did you have something to add? I saw you on mute a second ago.
No, it was discussed. I think if econ development lives outside of the COO's purview, then that is those planning inspections, all that just do have to connect and marry. That's like a big kind of connect point that is generally missing. So I think you've covered it, that there will be a lot of fluid communication between no silos.
The word is, I keep them, and I have the senior team pretty much in place right now. It's a little weird for me. I mean, I'm not elected yet. I do have an opponent. I need all the votes I can get in November, but I'm acting on the assumption that I'm going to be successful on November 4th. And we are functioning as a team. I can't tell you enough that we text and call we text every day. We email every day, often multiple times a day. And I'm very confident that this team will be talking to one another so that everyone knows what everyone else is doing. So the inspectional piece, if there's an issue with inspections, for example, we're going to go and look into that carefully and see what the roadblocks are. I want everyone to be healthy. I want to have health inspectors. We need that. You actually all want that. You don't want your competition out there running an unhealthy establishment. But at the same time, if we're doing things that are not necessary to the public well-being, but they're interfering with your business, that's not okay. And we'll do a better job. You're
Yep,
making
and
this
then
too easy for me. Come on, you gotta ask me tougher questions.
to the point of your asked us was providing that list. Question for the chamber team. The collaborative email lists, they are inclusive of non-members as well, correct? Or like,
For
do you guys have thoughts on how we can kind of make sure we're giving the right contact info to the mayor's office going forward?
Yeah, it does include like a little bit of non-members, but I could start cleaning it up so it doesn't include.
We could probably reach out to the licensing who has the application emails and contact points that may or may not be outdated as well.
Yeah, I don't know. There may be some legal restrictions about what licensing can give out. I just don't know. But certainly as part of our outreach program, if we're talking to a local business, for example, some coffee shop that's
Yeah.
not a part of the chamber, we can add their information. The key is you get us as much information as possible and we can build on that.
Okay, perfect.
If I can go back to the health inspections issue, because we had a long conversation among some of the owners about this recently. I think part of the issue is, yeah, absolutely, we want good, solid health inspections. We want advice, we want perspective. But sometimes there seems to be an insensitivity towards, you show up at noon and you want full attention, but you can't give the person full attention, nor do you get the benefit of a full conversation with them. So I maybe one of the owners can explain why, timing matters and what that relationship is and how it should be improved.
Kate or Brendan, did you guys want to talk about this?
Hi, first of all, thank you for meeting with us. We really appreciate it. We haven't had as many issues with the health inspections as I think some restaurants, but I think the main concern is that if they happen to show up on a day someone's called out or that it's especially busy, this seems to be pretty common. And I wondered if there was, my suggestion was if there's some way that each restaurant gets one deferral or one comeback later per year. But this particular issue hasn't been so problematic for us. So someone else who has had more issues might be better able to speak on it.
Seeing nobody volunteering, let me offer this. I don't want to commit to anything on the inspection side because I don't know if there's reasons for the health inspectors to want to come at particularly busy times or not. I just don't know that information. I think it's a very reasonable request that if it does not matter when they come, what time of day they come, that if they can come when you're less busy and they can get more of your attention, that's probably mutually beneficial. If they have suggestions about, safe serve practices, for example, you probably want to hear those. I hope you do. And our inspectors, it seems to me, are there to educate as much as oversight. So if there's a problem and we identify and you fix it, great, it's no longer a problem. That's the way we ought to be working. And that's, I think, in the ideal world, what inspectors do. The goal is to get you in full compliance. The goal is not to punish. Now, obviously, if the inspector's somewhere and it's the third time they've shown up and there's a problem, sometimes you got to be clear that you're not going to tolerate those problems. If for no other reason than you're setting the example for everyone else that says, hey, we're serious about this stuff. But I envision it as, at least to start, a much more of a cooperative, trying to help relationship. I think that's, frankly, it's a better form of government. But again, I don't know enough about the specifics of the health inspectors to, fully comment on that. But that's something we talk about. And if there's particular issues, that's probably going to come under John Rice's bailiwick, since I think that comes under, I think it's under Health and Human Services. We'll make sure it's done properly.
Perfect, thank you. I think we touched upon a lot of the points in the second where Newton needs a real advocate for its restaurants and other small businesses. Follow-up question to that. Have you already selected an economic development director, or is that still something?
There's someone, I'm not gonna comment on that level of personnel. I've really focused on kind of the top tier right now.
Yep. So referencing kind of the ask we have for 6 and 7, is that still on the table if you do kind of open up that search?
Yeah, I want to think about it. I don't want to commit to it yet because frankly, I'm not sure how that's all going to play out. We have somebody who does economic development in the city right now. I don't even know what that person wants to do going forward. So there's a lot there. It really depends if we end up, and I say if because I don't know at that level of personnel. I'm certainly open to it, or at the very least, some involvement in terms of questions to ask, things to consider. I just haven't made up my mind on it yet.
And
Yeah.
I think, that question came from, our, the chamber's experience, and I think the Dining Collab's experience with, communication with the city. And if there ever was a time that there was turnover in any position, like so important as economic development director, we think it would be important for us to have a seat at the table in crafting what that role looks like.
Yeah,
And
there's
your
always a
mission.
balance when you do searches for jobs. I mean, I've seen it done a whole bunch of different ways. Everything from a police chief or a fire chief, for example, where it's statutorily mandated and you have to have certain set procedures. I would say that most city positions do not involve searches from outside the city government, but I'm open to all of that. I just haven't thought it through very carefully, and it really depends on who the potential applicants are too.
So if I could just add one thing, that, as you may recall, the economic development director position is a little bit unique in that it's funded by the meals tax and hotel tax. That was the original way that position was established. So we do think we have a little more skin in the game in that one, and hope you'll just keep that in mind as you move forward.
Well, I appreciate that, Greg, and it's duly noted. And again, I just want to be really careful not to make commitments about things that I haven't done a detailed analysis of. I want to talk with my team. I'd want to talk to the human resources people to make sure that I'm not doing something, at all inappropriate. A lot of positions, by the way, at City Hall are unionized. I don't think that position is, but others are. You've got to just be careful about how you do things.
Would you be able to share what's important to you at this point in that economic development director
Sure.
position?
Regardless of who it is, whether it's current person or someone else, again, I don't want to say anything negative about someone who I just don't know, how long that person's going to want the job. There's a lot of things there, but I'll tell you what's important to me. It's got to be a front-facing, outward-facing person. I do not want someone in that position who's reactive. I want someone who's proactive. I expect them to go out and start by talking to the business owners in this community, talk to the commercial landlords in this community. That's where you start, okay? Because those are the people who are on the ground doing things now. And then we have to think about, and I want our economic development person to be thinking about, how do we market? Because this is partially a marketing job. How do we market others to come here and do business here? What what are we going to do else to get people who are elsewhere in the state? Maybe they're running a small chain of restaurants, for example, and they want to expand. Newton's a great place for that. We want that. Maybe they're out of state. This is the first time they're looking to go into Newton. It could even be international. I mean, I think that's going to be harder for a city like Newton than, say, a Boston or New York, but still something that's doable. So all of that is going to be an outward facing, somewhat of a sales job, but a sales position in a very positive approach, not a negative approach. The second piece of the job, and this is also critically important, is I want someone who's able to deal with concerns of the existing businesses, or somebody who comes in and says, I'm ready to start a new business. I want them to help that person walk through City Hall and get through the process as efficiently as possible. And if there's a 3-week delay in inspectional services, that person needs to be able to call someone to City Hall with some authority who's going to be say, that's not okay. Get it done. Now, I'll do that. I'm not afraid to do that, but you don't really want the mayor being the only person who gets that done. By the way, if you don't know me, most of you don't know me well at all. I don't have a lot of, I'm pretty impatient at times, and that's probably good. I'm impatient when things don't get done quickly and promptly. And it's really important to me that if you need something, that we respond quickly. I can't overemphasize that. So hopefully that answers a little bit about what I'm looking for. It is a very important position, and I want that person, I'll emphasize again, proactive, not reactive.
Perfect. And then when we had initially talked, you had mentioned that the economic development director will kind of have direct access to the mayor's office. Within the structure now, they're going to report to your chief of staff, correct?
I'm not sure if it's going to stay physically within planning or not. There's a lot to be said for having the person in the planning department, but kind of having a dotted line reporting to the chief of staff. That's something that's a little bit ongoing, and I have to let my chief of staff and whomever the new director of planning is going to be have some say there, because I think it's very important that people run their teams or departments have say in things like that.
Yeah. So if there is a situation where we are having issues with the economic development director and communication, et cetera, who would be the kind of go-to person within
You
the
go to the chief of staff, and
Chief
if
of
you don't
staff.
get satisfaction there, you call me.
Okay.
But the chief of staff, I assure you, will be taking care of this stuff.
Yeah.
This person's very capable.
Perfect. Did anyone else have anything to kind of add on to that before we move on to the next point? Perfect. The last kind of high level point we were talking about was permitting and inspection reform. I think we touched base on some of this, like the health inspection and whatnot, but the major kind of obstacle for us, especially opening or expanding, has been the lack of communication between 10, 12 different departments, and each person kind of pointing at another department for final approval or whatnot. Coverage of vacations for inspectors, inspectors not being available or having too much on their plates, which delays opening by a week or two. Things that just shouldn't happen in a city where a new business opening that's thousands and thousands of dollars on the table they're losing. So what are your plans to kind of make Newton more business friendly in terms of opening, that doesn't kind of scare people away when they hear some horror stories?
Look, reputation is everything. If you develop a reputation of being unfriendly to opening up a new business, then the business owner who's looking to start the first restaurant or open up their seventh is not going to come here. So you got to make sure your reputation is good. That's not going to be done overnight. I think it's like trust. You have to earn it. Like I said, what I'm going to want to hear from you, and I'm going to want my chief of staff and probably Josh Morse, you're the health inspector, so maybe it'll be a combination of the chief of staff, John Rice, and Josh Morse, because there's building inspectors and health inspectors, and they fall into different categories. I'll really want to sit down with you all and understand what kind of the life cycle it is from the moment you walk into City Hall and say, I want to open up my new restaurant, assuming you don't need a special permit. I'm going to leave that aside for the moment. But if you don't need a special permit, what is the sequence of events? I want to step back. I want to analyze it. I want to think through what we're doing well and what we're not doing well. And if you do need a special permit, I want to do the same thing, but you're obviously going to have to incorporate some other factors into it, such as the planning department, others, whatever other what other agencies or rather departments you have to go through. But the only way we're going to do this well is by really analyzing it and analyzing it very carefully, and then stepping back and talking to all of you, or a representative sample. I mean, I'm not going to ask 12 people to get on a call to do this, but a handful of people, and just walk it through step by step by step, and see where there's things that we're doing well and things we're not doing well, and what's caused you delay. I'll leave you with this final thought there. As I said before, I come from the business community. I know what it's like. Time is money. Time is always money for my clients. And if we delay you 3 weeks in opening, and you've got your finances in place and you're paying off your loan to the bank or whomever is financing you, and you're not open, that's a huge problem for you. Huge problem. And we can't tolerate that. That could be the difference between you being successful or not. So, I don't want us to do that. At the same time, if we have a clear set of requirements that are clear, that we lay out in an understandable form, then the expectation will be that you'll follow them, and that way we'll work together to get you up and running and continuing to operate.
Yep. So one kind of example I'll give,
Sure.
just to have a specific for the first point under the permanent inspection, which should be at the easiest level right now, is pre-opening permanent inspections. That's the final stage when everything's basically been done. The building inspector comes,
Yep.
does a final check, signs off. Me in particular, I'll share this for Oak and Barrel. We were delayed about 2 weeks because our inspector was on vacation, and every single inspector, coverage or not, said they didn't have time, said it had to be that person. And finally, someone who covered did it 2 weeks later, which could have been done 2 weeks. So could we get some sort of commitment from you to make like easy things like that not be an issue?
Yeah, if I
There
hear
should be a
that,
coverage plan for inspectors. It shouldn't be one inspector if he's in the, like, vacations are part of planned departures, right? Like planned time off.
Arpit, if the answer is someone's on vacation for 2 or 3 weeks, they'll get back to you, and I find out about it, the answer is going to be get someone out there today to get the inspection
Like
done.
sick coverage and all that. It's just they're clear
I don't
right
care.
now. There
I
isn't
don't
a
care if you're
coverage
sick.
pattern.
I don't care if you're sick or vacation. When I'm not in the office, I've got, if I'm out on vacation, I've got team members covering for me, and they're fully authorized to act on my behalf, and they know what to do, and they know how to get me if I need to be involved. So as far as I'm concerned, that's not an excuse. Now, look, if someone's out sick on a Monday and they're back on Tuesday and they do that on Tuesday, I'm not going to, I think there's some element of reasonableness, but 2 weeks,
Yeah,
unacceptable.
and I think Rob, you had your hand up too.
Yeah, what I was gonna say has nothing to do with the comment, and more of my personal experience with Mark. I mean, we were a customer of Mark and has used Mark in his company many times, and just I couldn't say anything bad about the experience, and anything that it was an amazing experience. Him, his team were great to work with, and the understanding of business is one thing, but the understanding of restaurants and how they operate, what our needs are, whether we're small, big, or in the middle, was just amazing. And I just wanted to make sure that got on this call, because I do have that relationship with Mark, and we have used his services for things that were minor, but then other things that were extremely major, that were life and death for a brand. You know what I mean? And going to him for that, and the calm, collected nature, and being in a room and understanding, well, how do you proceed? How do you move forward? What are my options? We're just amazing. So I wanted to make sure that made it to this call.
Rob, you're too kind. I never ever talk about my clients publicly, but if folks want to talk about me, I'll take it with gratitude. So thank you.
Thanks, Rob. Kay, did you want to chime in on anything? I know you just got on a few minutes ago. Just want to give you some time.
Yeah, sorry, I had another meeting commitment. I guess I've really been happy with the meetings that we've had, Mark, and I'm absolutely going to give you the benefit of the doubt that you mean what you say. I think that's the way I approach things, is when someone says something, believe them until they show you otherwise. I think many of us have had some frustrations with City Hall. That doesn't mean we need to hang on to those. I think it's a big operation. Obviously, you're going to need some time. And I would just throw this into the mix in terms of being fair to both an organizational structure that's bureaucratic in nature and entrepreneurs that turn things around very quickly, because that's our nature to do things, is that, you know, communication is always going to be the key. And I would say the thing that nobody should get trapped in is sometimes business owners don't do things correctly and don't get what they want in a timely fashion. And I don't want your efforts at the city to be undermined by that. So again, I think it goes back to communication, you know, always. And if we know, as an example, if there's problems at the Board of Health and sort of we're continuing to get kind of have challenges with that department in terms of not having enough staff or having a lot of rotating staff, so we don't get a chance to sort of develop relationships with a couple of inspectors, which I think really builds a great relationship, then that's a fair thing to communicate. We've all been there. So I'm looking forward to moving ahead and leaving the challenges we've had in the past and giving you and your incoming team a chance to get settled and create something that will be really helpful, because I think we've got amazing businesses, hardworking owners with creative thoughts who really want to be successful and they want to offer something to their community. And I think if we have real partnership in the city, we can work together really well. So I look forward to this, Mark, and I have no doubt, based on what you've said in previous meetings and what I've heard so far, that we're going to be off to a good start.
Okay, that's very kind of you. Look, I appreciate that. I'm going to say this. I'm going to make mistakes. I'm not going to do certain things well. The only thing I'm going to ask you is come talk to me or email me or text me or however you want to get in touch with me. Let me know. Give me the feedback. Give me the candid feedback. What I don't want is for all of you to get together at some meeting and say, we can't stand the Laredo administration. They haven't done what they promised, but no one's bothered to tell me. So, you know, I'm a big person. I'll take criticism constructively, but I need the feedback. If we are not doing something well, you got to tell us, okay? Because we can't fix something if we don't know about it. That's my only ask.
I think you don't have to worry about that from this group. We're very vocal.
Good. I love that.
Cool. And then kind of the last point, just want to hear your thoughts on our ask for the increase in meals tax. If the city does authorize an increase in meals tax, if the state authorizes the city to increase the meals tax and the city does do so, would you be willing to commit some to promote and support dining locally in Newton?
You know, I'm not going to make any financial commitments given what's going to be a very difficult next few years fiscally. I'm not going to make those commitments. I don't think I could or should. I've been pretty careful on the campaign trail not to make those kinds of promises. But I hear the request. And I really want you to leave this meeting knowing that you have someone in City Hall who's going to support you. And I mean, support you strongly. You know, in many ways, you're the lifeblood of our community. And if you succeed, we succeed.
Sounds good. I just want to open it up to kind of anyone. Greg, if you had anything, or anyone else on the call for the last 10, 15 minutes.
You know, I wanted to hear from the restaurants. I know we've had a lot of conversations, and I hope encourage people to speak up now if they have anything else they want to get to.
I think it's been very cordial. I think the amount of frustration that has been expressed in our internal calls is coming across in a very professional, streamlined manner right now. But I guess underlying all of these requests is a lot of frustration collectively. So I think if you're saying that you understand time is money and the dots need to connect internally, on behalf of business owners and what that means to everybody. I think if that can happen, as Kay said, like, I think that's great. I guess I would have a question about, you just mentioned that you believe that restaurants in many ways are lifeblood of the community. I guess, what do you view restaurants? You're going to have a lot of different parties coming to you for a lot of different things and asks and needs and me first and all the stuff. So like, where do you, I guess, view, or how do you view restaurants qualitatively, quantitatively for Newton?
Look, restaurants provide something very fundamental for folks. They need to eat. We all need to eat, whether we go to the grocery store, or we buy takeout, or we go out to dine out. Restaurants, in my experience, also contribute very strongly to the vibrancy of village centers, or in your case, the street, which I view as in many ways a mini village center, because that's kind of the way it's laid out. But they are vibrant. They get people out of their homes. There's an interconnection between commercial businesses, between the arts and culture, which I also think is a really important part of our local economy. I want people to be out of their houses, interacting with one another, buying locally, and engaged. And if we do all those things, we're going to be a better community in a lot of different ways, including a happier community. I don't think that should be underrated. We have a responsibility in city government to build a sense of community in the city. We're pretty good at that right now. There's a place where people actually choose to live. They choose to stay here well after they've raised their children, which is not true in a lot of other places. But a lot of that vibrancy is critical. And I think restaurants and restaurants run the gamut from a fast casual to fine dining to a coffee shop. They all have different niches. But they all play a very important role in our economic success as a city. And again, it's not just the economic success, but it's the happiness of our individual residents, which is critically important. So I do think you play an extremely important role, and there's a synergy that gets going. If you have a vibrant arts and culture scene, then maybe someone goes to a movie or a play or something else, and they go to Cabot's for ice cream afterwards, or they go for dinner beforehand somewhere. That all builds a sense of community.
Brendan, just wanted to give you a chance.
Yeah, I think just to piggyback on what Nancy was saying, I think just one of the frustrations that we've had over the past few years is a lack of recognition that we are such a diverse group of businesses, despite we all fall under the umbrella of restaurants. And I feel like we've come across a number of situations where we're painted with a really broad brush in terms of whether it's inspections or regulations. And it doesn't always take into account that we are like hyper specific in terms of how we operate our businesses, despite the fact that we're all restaurants.
So Brendan, what I'll need there is and we'll do this offline, obviously, but I'll need you to talk to my team about some real specifics there, okay? Because it's hard for us to implement any kind of change without understanding what the concerns are. So although I do from just common knowledge, but also my work experience, I do recognize that there's really, within the broad market of restaurants, broad category of restaurants, there are very different sub-markets that have different needs. I mean, I know that fast casual, for example, is completely different in many ways than a fine dining experience. And that's understandable. The needs are different, and different too if you're running a solo operation or maybe two restaurants versus running, you're running a national chain. Again, those are very different. And we have to be sensitive to the fact that something that might be from a cost perspective, borne by a large corporate entity that does it over and over and over again, for someone who runs one or two restaurants may be very difficult to comply with. I think we need to be cognizant of that.
Mhm.
Cool. Mark, kind of want to bring up kind of a lot, you say the restaurants are vibrant, critical part of our community. One kind of fact that we can't ignore is a lot of business owners and or employees can't afford to live here. We're saying people choose to live in Newton way past raising their kids and all that. What are your thoughts on kind of our ability to retain or attract talent when they have to travel from the likes of like north of Boston or the city where the commute becomes long? The other thing is kind of the multiplier factor. Our employees are the ones who will multiply their earnings within the local economy. Like there's a big kind of culture where restaurant employees will go out to other restaurants, will go out to other local things. They have a good sense and virtue of supporting local because they are in the grind of it and they understand it. When they're not able to kind of stay within the bounds of Newton, what are your thoughts on that? And how can we kind of have a program or something where residents, employees, and people who are kind of the backbones can become residents of Newton?
Look, this is a big challenge, and frankly, much bigger than the mayor's office is going to solve. We do have, certain amounts of subsidized housing in the city, in Newton Housing Authority, for example. But my guess is that many of your employees, because they're working, many, not all, but many probably won't qualify for that kind of housing. Building affordable housing, we are going to see more of that. I just met with a developer who's looking to build in Newtonville all affordable housing project, which I actually thought was really well thought out. That's going to be some opportunity there. I don't think we're going to solve that problem in the near term, quite bluntly. There are other things we can do, though, that will at least help folks who do have to commute. That includes providing the ability for them to park, because many of those people, if they're coming from a fairly distant place, are likely to be driving, particularly if they're working night shifts, for example. Depending on where they live, public transit may not be a great option. So we need to be thinking about that. That's obviously a concern. Other than that, I don't have any ready answers. We will be supportive of those housing opportunities, but that's not going to get done overnight.
Yeah. Kay, just want to give you a chance.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure, we're all well aware at this point of how the plaza experience was for Newton Center in terms of lack of information, spending of money, and all of that. Another aspect to the plaza that I want to bring up and speak about future partnerships. One of the things that we had hoped to have at the plaza was information about single-use takeout containers, because that is just something that could reduce trash. It reduces staff to come and collect the trash. And we had hoped, working with Recyclable, that it could be used as a jumping off point, because right now Johnny's is the only restaurant using recyclable containers. But we had hoped that with information, if people knew that they were like a few hundred yards away from, that opportunity to instead trash it, just return it, kind of thing. And the city's response, as I understood it, was, oh, well, we can't promote one restaurant. Well, I was never looking for promotion. I was looking for the idea. You didn't even have to have Johnny's name on it. The point of it was to reduce trash, because I walk by the Big Belly container and it's often overflowing. The idea was just a generalized idea of trying to move the public forward on single-use container and give them an option. And so the perception that would favor me somehow, when in fact we were working to get other restaurants involved in this, it's a bit tiring, because it's like it wasn't about promoting me. Take Johnny's name off anything, that put Recyclable on it, like we were trying to move something forward. And so I guess speaking about, all our budgets are tight. You know, we're in restaurants, as you know, we're always looking at, you know, an extra hour of labor, a price on an item, menu costs, all that kind of thing. And so I just think let's really get creative and see where, because we have the foot traffic. We have not only, you know, a good percentage of the population of Newton coming in our doors. So I think I have felt sometimes a hesitancy of, oh, well, we can't appear to support a business or whatever. And it's like, I think we have shared interests that we want to get out to the public. And so let's, you know, whether it's something in the mayor's newsletter or whether it's just general information, I've always considered, you know, any business I've had is, you know, a community opportunity, you know, to just inform the public about a variety of things. So I hope we can get to that point where it's not about promotion, it's about communication and information. And yes, those restaurants that choose to be involved at a high level may get some spillover effect, but I don't think that should bar us from thinking outside the box in terms of partnering in ways that would benefit the community. So I'll just...
Okay, let me respond to that. Look, I'm a lawyer, and by training and profession, you know, I understand rules. Okay, you know, my late father-in-law was a pretty good businessman, and one of the things he used to tell me about being a lawyer, he only tolerated lawyers, even though I was his son-in-law at best. He said, look, don't tell me I can't do something necessarily. Figure out, if you can't do it one way, how you can get it done. It actually was superb advice. And I think that goes directly to your point. Yeah, we don't want to show favoritism. I think you've got to be careful in government to be impartial, but I do not want rigidity getting in the way of results. Okay. And I think there's ways we can do exactly what you're trying to promote without playing favorites, but we can actually get the word out. So my job is going to be figuring out how to get to yes, how to promote that, rather than just instinctively saying no. And that's an approach we've been talking about a lot, and we've been hearing about it a lot, frankly, the same issue from some of our nonprofits too, who are sometimes frustrated with an attitude of, no, you can't do it, no, you can't do it, instead of, you can't do it this way, but here's how you can get it done. And we're going to have the latter approach. So I hope that'll be helpful. The plaza, I will just share with you very briefly, as an exercise on how not to do something. And I don't want to go further than that, but we can find lots better ways to accomplish a similar goal without the disruption, confusion, a very large expenditure of ARPA and city funds unnecessarily, quite honestly. And not only that, but a huge amount of staff time. Which also, again, you know, whenever you're internally, we're spending staff time on things, it means they're not doing other things that are important. And all of that, unfortunately, took place with this pocket park. So lesson learned, at least this administration will have learned that lesson.
Thanks a lot, Mark.
Yep, thank you.
Mark, do you have a few more minutes? I had one last.
Yeah, I'll take as much time as you want.
Cool. So this was kind of going back to like economic development. Are you aware of like the Economic Development Commission that's part of the, I guess,
Sure,
the city of Newton? And I guess they have had a third party kind of consulting firm doing a review, and there's going to be a presentation in October. Are you kind of familiar with that, involved in that at all?
I am. I haven't been closely involved with that particular study.
Yeah.
I think the Economic Development Commission has a tremendous opportunity to do a lot of good. They've had different, depending on the leadership and the composition, they've had different focuses over the years. I'm going to take my appointment power to these boards and commissions very seriously. I want, and not to in any way criticize the current commission at all, quite the contrary. But I will want to make sure that we get broad representation on all of these commissions.
And do they have direct access to the planning department, the economic development director, and mayor's office currently? Do you know?
They do, and the planning director sits on the planning and development, I'm sorry, they sit on the Economic Development Commission, at least in terms of staffing, but frankly, I think we could do a better job there, quite honestly. I want these boards and commissions to be a resource to the city. I'm not looking just to have folks have a bunch of meetings, talk to themselves and do nothing. If we're asking members of the community to get involved in something, I want their input and I want it to be taken seriously.
Yep. I guess the one ask that I have, and I don't think we've discussed this as a group, I'm sure this group is going to agree. Right now it says the commissioners consist of Newton residents who have volunteered and been appointed by mayor to serve 3-year terms. Going back off the idea and the point that the business community doesn't necessarily live here, especially retail and restaurant. Are you able, I don't know if it's within your power to, but would you be able to include business owners or Newton business owners as well, not just residents? Because it's a blindside for the entire commission.
I think that's a great idea. I mean, if you're talking about economic development, I want people who have a stake in the community, whether they live here or they do business here. I don't know, without looking into it, what the ordinance says about the composition of it. And I'm certainly open to making a change to include non-residents who operate their own businesses here.
If it goes to city council, get it changed before you leave.
Pardon?
So if it goes through city council, get it changed quick.
Well, I'm not worried about that, and most of that stuff comes through the mayor anyway, so I'd have to be the one to initiate it, but I'm confident I'm going to have a good relationship with the new city council.
Cool, perfect. If no one has anything else, I just want to thank you for your time on behalf of kind of the collaborative and the chamber. And obviously, we'll see how things play out, and if things do go positive for your way, we'd love to set up another meeting once you're kind of in charge in office where we can have more tangible conversations.
What I would suggest is that we not wait till January 1st and we try to schedule something maybe towards the first part of December when I'll be really public about what my team looks like, and they can be involved. So if you want to put something on the calendar, maybe for first week of December, I don't know how that works time-wise for folks. But that would be fine with me.
Yeah, we'll coordinate with the chamber team and get something out to you guys.
Terrific. I'm happy to do that. I don't want these to be infrequent, and that's why I think it's important to continue to schedule these sessions. But I do want you to meet the members of my team directly.
Yep.
Very important. Great. Thank you all so much for your time. Take care. Bye now.
Thank you.